would be, I'll put it this way, raising strong-willed and resilient children has been the biggest challenge in our current times. What can parents do to succeed in this area?
Okay, so I actually went to look up the definition of resilience, and I have a few here. Capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, recovery, bouncing back from life challenges, successfully adapting to difficult or challenging experiences. So it's not a matter of if, but it is when our children will have difficulties in life. And so they must be prepared. What I find is that a lot of us come here with resilience. A lot of us didn't have it so easy growing up. We had to struggle to make it through. And then coming to a totally different country. My husband and I came here with two suitcases. Coming here with no money, with every time you open your mouth, someone tells you you have an accent. You try to get a job, you don't even have the papers. Having all these difficulties, you still find out that immigrants succeed. That is because of resilience that we have. Unfortunately, it looks like we're having difficulty passing that on to our children.
Absolutely.
Now our children live in affluence that we did not have. I actually worked with a lady, and I think it set the tone for me, for my family. She told me, she said, I was raised poor. And so I made up my mind that I was going to give my children everything they wanted. She said, I ended up raising selfish children. It was so impactful for me to hear, and I never forgot. And I said, I don't want to raise selfish children. So when you give your children everything, when your children don't have to lift a finger, when they eat, you pick up the plate for them and you wash it for them, and they don't do any chores in the house. When you raise children like that, you are not preparing them for the real world, because the real world is harsh, whether you live in the United States or not. And so we need to give this to our children. I'm going to talk about what we can do. But what are we really giving? What does resilience involve? Resilience involves having a sense of confidence and control. And so we're going to talk about how do we develop that in our children. Ability to regulate emotions, so that if someone does something to hurt you, you don't just slap them because you may end up in jail. Effective coping skills to life's troubles, and being able to adapt well in the face of adversity and stress. And the solutions may surprise us because I think we took it for granted. We have a lot of advantage coming from where we have come from, but sometimes we don't see those as advantages anymore. We want to be as far away as possible from the suffering that we had, not knowing that our success may be actually because of what we have gone through. So some of the things that I mentioned in my book that I'll share briefly is to make our children understand that their value is not in what they look like or what they have. We live in a very, very materialistic society. And so everybody sees things in terms of how big your house is, how big your car is, what you have. But we want our children to have a sense of real value. And I'll give an example. When my children were growing up, and sometimes when my husband would go to pick them up in school, he would take our older car. We had newer cars that he could take, but he would take the old car. And he said, I want my children to feel confident in their identity, not in the type of car that their father drives. And I'm sure that in the beginning, our children were like, why wouldn't daddy just bring the nicer car? But, eventually our children got used to it, that, that was just how it was going to be. And so, and I remember my daughter told me a story one day when her friend got to know the professions of my husband and I, and that her friend told her, oh my goodness, you must have whatever you want. And she said she told them, you don't know my parents. And I told my daughter that was the greatest compliment she could give us, that it didn't matter how much we had, she didn't just get it. We need to teach our children gratitude. Again, this is a society, and I'm not just talking about America, I think that's just how the world is right now, that people are just so entitled and they are not grateful. We need to teach our children to be grateful for everything they have. It's a very common thing to hear that over Christmas, children will get Christmas gifts and they will just start throwing it away. I don't want that. I don't want that. We let our children know whoever gives you anything does not owe you anything. So you have to be grateful for anything that anyone gives you, no matter how cheap it is, because you didn't pay for that. And a lot of thought has gone into it. And so you have to be grateful. So we taught, and we told them, if anyone gives you anything, you need to let us know so we can also thank them. Don't be afraid to say no to your children. That's another thing that we struggle with. A young professional woman actually asked me, she said, it's so hard for me to say no to my children because I can actually afford what they're asking me. And I said, it's not a matter of being able to afford it. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should give them. You don't just give your children things just because they want it. There has to be a reason for you to give them, and be confident in saying no, and don't worry about it, because otherwise you are going to raise children who are just entitled, not grateful, thinking that the world centers around them. And that's going to be a problem. Another good thing that we need to teach our children is delayed gratification. And I think that's another thing that has helped us in this country. Maybe now some countries in Africa have credit cards, but we did not used to have credit cards. So before you could get anything, you actually had to save up and have the whole amount. Even sometimes to build a house, you don't have mortgages. You just have to do it as you have the money. And I think that helped us here, a lot of us coming, because we came to this country, you just didn't have it. Even if you wanted to have the big house, the big car, you just couldn't afford it. And so we had to wait. And I think that has been an advantage for us. Let's not deny our children that gift of delayed gratification. Let them wait for things. Strong work ethic. That pays off anywhere. If you have a chance to watch videos or read books about people like Warren Buffett, all these rich people here, they actually put in a lot of hard work. And if we don't allow our children to work hard, we are denying them the elements of success, and they might not achieve the success. In fact, that's a story for another day. Immigrant paradox. Children of immigrants are turning out not to be as successful as their parents because of this same reason of, just not having the strong work ethic and the other things that we have. So let your children do chores in the home. Let them sweep the floor. Let them mop the floor. Let them wash dishes. In our home, we only use the dishwasher when we had a lot of guests and there were just a lot of dishes. So that once in a blue moon. Otherwise, we had a schedule, and your children need to be able to wash dishes. They need to be able to cook. They need to be able to do the work. And sometimes we have to create, hard work for them. Let them mow the lawn. Let them wash your car. Let them do all these things. You are actually preparing your children for success when you do that. So strong work ethics is very important. Hospitality, responsibility. Don't rush to replace anything they lose. A child loses a toy and you rush to replace. So when the child grows up and loses a laptop that costs $1,000, are you going to rush and give it back? If they damage your car, are you going to rush and buy another car? So we need to teach responsibility. And of course, good values, just perseverance. Let's teach them. These are traits that we need to actually teach our children, to stay through, to follow through, to not give up when they have problems, to teach them to persevere and to just wait, and to be respectful and to be courteous. Even in this society, all those things work. A lot of our children of immigrants, actually have a lot of favor. Many times as Christians, we pray for favor, but sometimes your character will give you favor in the workplace when you show up in an uncommon way, when you can say, "Good morning, Mr. Jones," to your teacher, when all the other children are just passing by and not saying hello to the teacher. When your child can say hello, when they can be courteous, they can be helpful, the favor is upon them wherever they find themselves. So I think when we do all these things, we'll end up raising children who are able to control themselves, who are able to withstand whatever harshness is going to give them. And one last thing, because I said one of the things that resilience involves is being able to regulate our emotions. We need to help our children to be able to speak up about whatever is going on with them. If we raise children who are to be seen and not heard the way we were raised, if we don't allow them to voice what is happening to them, they bottle it up. It has been seen that even for boys, when you tell them boys don't cry, when you don't allow them to show their emotions, they build it up. And then, when someone does something to them, they may get angry and then act in a violent way, and that can get them in trouble. So we need to train ourselves to be able to be comfortable with our emotions and allow our children to express their emotions so we can show them the proper way to respond to situations so that they'll be able to handle these things that will happen, that is bound to happen to them. They're bound to face it, whether in school or at the workplace. They will know how to manage relationships and to be able to work through their issues. Thank you.